how can I make sure an AI replicates my writing style fully? So my custom GPT is struggling to replicate exactly my writing style. Yes. Despite asking it to analyze the PDF it supplied within its knowledge, how can I make sure it replicates my writing style fully? First of all, you need to give a lot of writing samples. It's not a custom GPT, but I've got a project which can very accurately replicate my writing style. The reason it can do that is because I've given it about 500,000 words of my written text. So I've written a lot in the past. I was able to give it to this project and it uses that as a source. I also gave it lots of transcripts of me talking, so it has a good idea of how I talk. And again, I have hours and hours of that footage and those transcripts, so it has a really good data set to work from. So first of all, you need to give it a bunch. So if you've just given it one PDF with your writing sample, that's probably not going to be enough. Go and get some more writing samples if you need to create them. So this is why I wrote a newsletter, or I still write a newsletter, but for the first couple of years, everything was manually written because I knew that would be very valuable data to feed into an artificial intelligence. And now it replicates my tone so well that I can actually use it as part of the writing process. That was not the case for the first year or so. It just wasn't good enough. So first, you need a huge amount of information. Second, you're using a custom GPT, so you may be running into a memory issue. Custom GPTs, I'm not sure what the context window is on them. Should we ask ChatGPT? What is the context window for a custom GPT? It's hard asking these questions though to ChatGPT because it doesn't have a good meta knowledge of itself, which kind of makes sense because remember they have a training cutoff date and its training cannot include information about itself because that happens after the training, if that makes sense. So this is saying it's sourced it 128,000 tokens if you're using GPT-4o or GPT-4 Turbo, 16,000 tokens if you're using GPT-4, don't use GPT-4, or 16,000 tokens if you're using GPT 3.5. Again, don't use GPT 3.5. So it's probably 4o. I haven't checked with the custom GPTs, but I assume you can use GPT-5 now. I'm sure you can, which will have a larger context window. I think it's 400,000. However, that's going to give you a certain amount, but you're not going to be able to upload hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words of written text. So I personally use Claude. I use a Claude project for my writing replication. So that could be the second problem here. So first is you need to give it a lot of data. Second, maybe you've given it all of that data, but it still hasn't managed to replicate your style. Then you might need to use something that has a larger context window so you can feed in more information. So that would either be Claude in a project or maybe Gemini if you want to feed it a huge amount of text. And then there are a few other things you can do to tweak. So as well as giving it the raw data, all of your writing, give it style guides. So what I would do is I would go into a large context model, maybe Gemini, feed in all of those writing samples and say to Gemini, hey, go through all of this and use it to write up a style guide for me, which I'm going to be using in a custom GPT. And that's going to basically run through all of that information, pull out the words that you use on a regular basis. It can create a do not list. So you can ask it to find like tons of phrases you don't really use, or you can basically have it write out a set of guidelines and you feed them into your custom GPT as a kind of project notes, a master plan that is meant to follow every single time. And then over time, what you can also do is feedback. So you said that how can I make sure it replicates my writing style fully? So you need to give feedback on what it's doing wrong. So it doesn't know what it's doing wrong. Only you do subjectively. So it's going to give you an output, and then it's up to you to take that output and basically annotate it. Imagine it's a student giving you an essay, and you need to mark the essay and give it back to that student. That's a useful way to think of this. You're going to go through the output, and you're going to basically tell the AI, I love what you did in paragraph 1. That was really good. In paragraph 2, I don't use that many exclamation points, so calm down on the exclamation points. Paragraph 3, I notice you used American spelling. I don't use American spelling, I use British spelling. And you're going to give this kind of feedback to the custom GPT, and you're going to ask it to write it into its custom instructions, or you can edit your master document and add all of these emendations into it as well. Yep, there's a few different steps. So 1, feed it a lot more data. 2, use a larger context model. 3, create I keep blanking on the name for it, but like a master document, a style guide. And then 4, give feedback until it gets better. Those 4 things should help you get to a better result. And you may find that a custom GPT is not the way to do this. You might need to do something more sophisticated, but start with a custom GPT first, and then you can look at alternatives later, because the process of putting together all of that information and creating a style guide and all of that kind of stuff is still useful, even if you take it out of custom GPT and build it into an application, for example. And if you're going to do that, I'd use Lovable. Not sponsored by them. I am going to go and see them next week because I won a competition with them, which is really cool. But I just really like it. It's a really cool product. I highly recommend it. Okay, so you fed it 120 headlines, but may need more. It just doesn't replicate how I do it. Very clear instructions. I've hit the limit in the instruction box. Yes, so give it a separate document as you've done. You've given it 120 headlines. So you may need to adjust your prompt. You may need to say only use the structure of these headlines. Do not use any of your own initiative. Do not use any external sources. You must follow the guidelines I've given you. So basically, we're trying to tell it to calm down its creativity. If we were building something outside of a custom GPT, we'd be able to adjust the temperature in the API settings, so we have more control of that. With a custom GPT, you basically just need to write a system prompt. What I would do, though, again, is you can just give feedback. So when you say to me, oh, it's not getting the headlines right, what you need to do is work out what exactly is wrong about those headlines and feed that back to the AI. That becomes the process of refining your custom GPT. And that's the hard work, unfortunately.